All right, today we're kicking off a journey to really understand autism spectrum disorder. We're going to look past the myths, get straight to the science, the clinical definitions, and, most importantly, the human side of it all. Let's get right into it.
So, before we dive into the details, just take a second and think about that question. Seriously, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, what we think we know is really just a collection of bits and pieces we've heard over the years.
Maybe you're picturing that puzzle piece symbol. And that's actually pretty controversial because it can make it seem like autistic people are a mystery that needs to be solved, or that they're missing something. Or maybe you think of a list of challenges, what a doctor might call deficits. A lot of the time, autism gets framed as a medical problem that needs fixing. And while these ideas are common, they really don't tell the whole story, not even close.
The truth is, autism is an incredibly complex and deeply human way of being. And to really, truly get it, we need to start with a much bigger idea.
And that idea is neurodiversity. This is a total game changer. Instead of seeing things in terms of a normal brain and abnormal brains, neurodiversity says, hey, wait a minute. It recognizes that variations in how our brains work are completely natural. It's kind of like biodiversity in nature. You need all kinds of different plants and animals for a healthy ecosystem. Well, you need all kinds of different minds for a healthy human society.
And this isn't some tiny, niche thing we're talking about. Get this. Estimates suggest that somewhere between 15 and 20% of the entire world's population is neurodivergent. That's not just autism. It includes things like ADHD and dyslexia too. We're talking about a huge, vital part of our global family. Okay, so keeping that big idea of neurodiversity in our minds, let's zoom in on how autism is actually defined from a clinical standpoint. The main guide that professionals use, the DSM-5, basically boils it down to ongoing challenges in two main areas. So here are the two pillars. On one side, you have social communication and interaction. And on the other, you have what are called restricted and repetitive behaviors or interests. Now, for someone to be diagnosed, they need to show traits in both of these areas. And these traits have to have been around since they were young.
So let's unpack that first pillar a bit, social-emotional reciprocity. What's that? Well, it can be the challenge of keeping a conversation going, that natural back and forth. Then there are nonverbal communication challenges. Things like making eye contact might feel really intense or unnatural, or maybe it's hard to read body language or someone's tone of voice. And that last point, that's about the difficulty of navigating all those unspoken rules of making and keeping friends.
Now for this second pillar. This can look like a lot of different things. It might be repetitive movements like hand flapping, that's often called stimming, and it can be a really important way to self-soothe or express big emotions. It also covers a deep need for routine and sameness, where even a small, unexpected change can feel totally overwhelming. And this is also where we see those deep, passionate interests in very specific subjects, and a whole different sensory experience of the world, where a normal sound might be painfully loud, or the tag on a shirt might feel like sandpaper.
Okay, this brings us to something that's super important, but also super misunderstood. We always hear the term autism spectrum, but what does that actually mean?
Let's just get this out of the way right now. It is absolutely not a straight line from a little bit autistic to very autistic. That's just not how it works. That whole model of high functioning versus low functioning is really outdated and honestly pretty harmful.
A much, much better way to think about it is like a sound mixing board. Every autistic person has their own unique mix of traits. One person might have the nonverbal communication slider way down, meaning they really struggle with it, but their sensory reactivity slider is low, so they don't have many sensory issues. Another person might be the total opposite. Everyone's profile of strengths and challenges is completely their own. No two are the same.
So what's actually happening in the brain to create these unique profiles? Well, science is shifting away from this old idea of looking for a broken part of the brain. Instead, the focus is now on understanding autism as a difference in the brain's overall connectivity. It's about the wiring.
And the key phrase here is atypical connectivity. It sounds complicated, but it just means the brain's wiring diagram got drawn up a little differently. It's not about missing parts, it's just a different organizational chart.
This slide here gives us a peek at what that different wiring can actually look like. Research suggests that autistic brains often have super strong, super fast connections within specific local areas. Think of them like incredibly efficient neighborhood roads. But the long-distance connections, the big highways that link different regions of the brain, might be a bit less connected. This could help explain both the incredible, intense focus an autistic person can have on a topic they love, and also why it can be challenging to pull together lots of different types of information all at once.
And this different wiring plan seems to start right from the get-go. One of the most consistent findings in autism research is that many autistic toddlers have a period of very rapid brain growth, followed by a different growth path as they get older. This just reinforces the idea that autism is a developmental difference that's there from the very beginning.
So, when you pull all of this together, the idea of neurodiversity, the real meaning of the spectrum, the brain connectivity differences, it all points to this one crucial shift in how we look at things. And this really gets to the heart of it. Autism is not an illness. It's not a disease that needs a cure. It's a core, lifelong part of how a person experiences and interacts with the world. So the goal shouldn't be to try and fix someone, but to provide the support and understanding they need to thrive as exactly who they are.
This brings us to a really fascinating concept called the double empathy problem. For decades, the assumption was always that if a conversation was difficult, it was the autistic person's fault. But this idea flips that script completely. It suggests that the communication breakdown is mutual. It's a two-way street. A non-autistic person struggles to understand the autistic person's world, and vice versa. It's a mismatch of operating systems, not a bug in one of them.
And you know what? The research totally backs this out. Studies have found that when autistic people talk to other autistic people, they communicate just as effectively as non-autistic people talking to each other. The trouble only pops up when you mix the groups. It really shows that it's all about that mismatch.
This whole shift in understanding is also reflected in the language people use. For a long time, the push was for a person-first language, like saying a person with autism. But now, many autistic adults prefer identity-first language. I am an autistic person. For them, autism isn't just something they have, like a briefcase, it's a fundamental part of who they are. So what's the bottom line here? It's simple. Just listen and respect how someone wants to be identified.
So we want to leave you with this thought to chew on. What if we stopped trying so hard to make people fit the world, and instead, we started trying to make the world fit people? What if our schools, our workplaces, our communities were built from the ground up to support all the different ways that minds can work? It's a big question. And it's where we'll pick up next time. Thanks for joining us.